This video is for educational and historical purposes only. It does not encourage, promote or endorse the handling, consumption or misuse of Datura stramonium or any poisonous plants. These plants are extremely dangerous and can cause serious injury or death. All references to folklore, history or criminal use are presented for information only. Any similarity to modern incidents or individuals is purely coincidental and unintentional. Never attempt to ingest or experiment with poisonous plants. Welcome to Pete's world of poisonous plants. Today we're stepping into the nightmarish world of the devil's trumpet, Datura stramonium. This isn't just another pretty flower with a nasty bite. This plant has earned its reputation as one of the most feared poisons on earth. Its victims don't simply get sick. They lose control of their minds, their memories, and sometimes their very sense of self. Datura is part of the Nightshade family, cousin to deadly nightshade, henbane, and mandrake. But while those plants can kill you quickly, Datura specializes in something far crueler: delirium. The seeds, leaves, and flowers are loaded with tropane alkaloids, atropine, scopolamine, and hyoscyamine. These chemicals block acetylcholine in the nervous system, which is a fancy way of saying they unplug the brain's wiring. The results? Hallucinations so real that you can't tell fantasy from reality, complete amnesia afterwards, and in many cases coma or death. One bite of the seeds or a careless brew of the leaves, and you'll find yourself wandering in another world, often in a state of undress, incoherent, convinced you're flying or chatting with people who aren't there. Unlike psychedelic drugs, this isn't colorful visions or spiritual journeys. It's chaos, terrifying, confused, utterly convincing delusion. Survivors say the worst part is you have no memory afterwards, just blank hours or days where anything could have happened. The plant has a history steeped in witchcraft and colonial nightmares. In Europe, Datura found its way into so-called witches' ointments in the Middle Ages. Tales of witches flying through the night, likely women smearing themselves with brews of Datura, henbane, and belladonna, then passing out in a toxic delirium. The flight was entirely in their poisoned minds. In the Americas, Datura was known long before Europeans arrived. Indigenous peoples sometimes used it in tightly controlled rituals, but the line between vision and death was razor-thin. When colonists in Jamestown, Virginia, ate it by accident in 1676, soldiers spent 11 days in a poisoned stupor, grinning like fools, wandering around naked, before eventually recovering. That little episode is why the plant still carries the name Jimsonweed, a corruption of Jamestown weed. And here's where the story takes a darker turn. In parts of South America, extracts of Datura, especially scopolamine, have been used not for medicine but for crime. Powdered into drinks or blown into a victim's face, it renders people compliant, confused, and powerless. Reports claim that victims hand over wallets, bank details, even help burglars carry their own possessions out of the house, and then remember nothing afterwards. It's so terrifying that even criminals speak of it with dread. They say a person under its spell loses their will, their very soul, and unlike a mugging with a knife, the victim has no memory, no resistance, no chance. No wonder Datura carries names like Devil's Trumpet, Hell's Bells, and Devil's Snare. Even in folklore, it's described as a plant that opens the gates of madness. In Hindu mythology, Datura was sacred to Shiva, a god linked with both creation and destruction, and offerings of the plant were tied to rituals of death and transformation. In European superstition, carrying the seeds was thought to ward off evil. Ironically, the real evil was in the seeds themselves. So what actually happens if you ingest it? Symptoms begin with dry mouth, dilated pupils, blurred vision, and a pounding heart. Then comes the delirium. You might strip naked, run through the streets, or sit quietly while your mind falls apart. Then seizures, coma, and often death from respiratory failure. The lethal dose is hard to pin down because every plant varies, but children have died from as little as one seed. Yes, one. And here's the kicker. Even if you survive, you probably won't learn your lesson because you won't remember what happened. It's a plant that erases its own crime. So if you ever stumble across a spiky seed pod and a cluster of trumpet-shaped white flowers, best admire it from a distance. The devil's trumpet doesn't just kill, it takes away your will, your memory, and your very grip on reality. Thanks for joining me in Pete's world of poisonous plants. If you've enjoyed this dive into the Devil's Trumpet, give the video a like and subscribe for more dark tales from the deadly side of nature.